Emma Lazarus, through her life as an activist for our people and her writing, including the New Colossus, engraved on the Statue of Liberty and set to melody by Irving Berlin, represented the extended torch of hope that America and New York City held out for us as Jews and all people fleeing the oppression of different lands in different ages. This is our city, and we are proud to be part of its history. And it is a true honor to welcome one of its great leaders, Manhattan's 28th Borough President, Mark Levine. A graduate of Haverford College with a master's in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, Borough President Levine began his decades of community service as a community organizer and as a bilingual math and science teacher at Junior High School 149 in the South Bronx. He was twice elected to represent the 7th City Council District, covering West Harlem, Hamilton Heights, Morningside Heights, and parts of the Upper West Side and Washington Heights. As chair of the City Council Health Committee, Mark rose to national prominence as a leader in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic as he took on the racial inequities in the healthcare system. During the height of the pandemic, he helped a consortium of synagogues, of which we were a part, get a lot of people vaccinated, and we remain very grateful. Since assuming his current office in January 2022, Borough President Levine has continued to prioritize initiatives to strengthen equity and resilience throughout Manhattan, including the Small Business Booster Loans Program, which has provided $2 million in interest-free loans to local entrepreneurs. And in an historic first for the nation, Mark passed legislation guaranteeing a right to counsel for tenants facing eviction in New York City's housing courts. I have been eager for Borough President Levine to speak at Temple Emanu-El since I stood beside him almost exactly a year ago outside Congregation Kehillat Jeshurun when he advocated that the rash of bomb threats then being made against Jewish institutions in New York be prosecuted as hate crimes. That was before October 7th. Since then, the incidents of anti-Semitism have only increased, according to the NYPD, occurring at a rate 3 times higher this July than last, part of a global trend that recently included an arson attack on a French synagogue and desecration of a Berlin Holocaust memorial. While events abroad are perhaps beyond his immediate purview, how New York City addresses attacks on Jews certainly sets an example for other cities, and Mark has been in the middle of it, from graffiti on synagogue doors to protests on college campuses. And we are so grateful to him for that leadership and for his presence with us tonight. Please welcome Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine.
My goodness, thank you, Rabbi, for that beautiful introduction. You read the whole Wikipedia article. That was wonderful. Good Shabbos, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. I am so honored to be worshiping with you tonight. This has been a beautiful service. This choir is amazing. I could listen to you all night. Thank you. This is a pillar institution in American Jewish life, and so it is very fitting that you are led by a rabbi whose strength of voice for progressive Judaism extends far beyond the walls of this sanctuary. Rabbi, I am so grateful for what you do to bring people in this city together across lines of faith and ideology and politics. You are the kind of leader we need more of now. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a brutal almost 11 and a half months since October 7th. And the ties between the Jewish communities of New York City and Israel, and really between New York City as a whole and Israel, are so deep that we experienced the horrors of October 7th viscerally, as if they were our own sons and daughters, husbands, grandparents, sisters who had been murdered and raped. I know that many of you, like me, actually do have family in Israel, and certainly many friends. And so this has been a deeply personal trauma for all of us. And in every one of these days since then, we have been sick to our stomach with the plight of the hostages, still numbering 106, old and young, men and women, some infirm, who have been held in captivity by Hamas, now for 239 horrific nights and counting. Just a few weeks after the attacks, I led a delegation of 12 elected officials from around New York, Jewish and non-Jewish, in an emergency solidarity mission to Israel. This was in early November. It was a searing, difficult, though I believe extremely important trip, including a visit to Kfar Aza, one of the kibbutzim on the Gaza border that was totally overrun in the attack. At the time of our visit, it was still an active war zone. It was honestly one of the worst scenes I have ever witnessed, and it deeply impacted me and everyone else on our mission. I know that you, like me, desperately want a deal to free the hostages and cease the hostilities for the benefit of everyone, including the civilians in Gaza, to de-escalate a potential wider conflict, to allow Israeli families to return to their homes in the north and more. And if you're like me, you're hitting refresh on Israeli news websites every 5 minutes, hoping and praying for good updates. But I want to focus for a few minutes now on how all this is playing out closer to home. Here in New York City, here in Manhattan, here on the Upper East Side. I want to talk about the increase in anti-Semitism here. But actually, while this trend has accelerated since October 7th, it started well before then. In fact, you can almost pinpoint the date at which the numbers started to rise at the moment when the 2016 presidential campaign started to heat up. And those numbers have continued to increase ever since. In fact, it was exactly a year ago this week, as the rabbi recounted, that we stood with a group of leaders just a few blocks from here to denounce a spate of swatting incidents targeting Jewish institutions, typically in the form of bomb threats, in which Temple Emanu-El has unfortunately been targeted multiple times. We needed to hold a press conference that day to denounce the fact that, incredibly, none of those swatting incidents had been charged as a hate crime. They were only targeting synagogues. The reason it turned out, to our shock, is that New York state law did not allow for those types of charges to be prosecuted as hate crimes. So we held that press conference that day to launch a campaign to fix that. And I am thrilled to say that thanks to some great allies at the state level, we won that fight. And now, when you target a synagogue with a fake bomb threat or any other type of false police report in New York State, you can and will be charged with having committed a hate crime. It pains me to say that the trend of increasing anti-Semitism did not stop that day in August a year ago. It significantly accelerated after October 7th, with a rise of vandalism of Jewish institutions, a rise in assaults on visibly Jewish people, a rise in verbal harassment of Jewish New Yorkers that often crosses the line into illegal threats. These are not just anecdotes. These are statistics. As the rabbi recounted, the last month that we have full stats was July. In that month, there were 79 hate crimes recorded in New York City, 45 of which were anti-Semitic, more than every other category of animus combined. And that number of anti-Semitic hate crimes, measured month on month, represented a 137% increase over the previous year, more than doubling from 2023 to 2024. And this has understandably created a climate of fear amongst many Jewish New Yorkers. People who, out of fear, now hide their Magen David, their Star of David, on the subway. Jewish day schools which, when they take their kids to the park, require the boys to wear baseball caps to cover their kippot. Synagogues that report a dramatic decline in rentals of their social halls for outside events because people have concluded that a synagogue is not a safe place to hold a social event. Look no further than the mobile command center that NYPD had to set up here tonight, and I believe on every Shabbat. College students who do not feel safe on their own campuses. Now, about that. Manhattan actually had 7 college campuses last spring where there were encampments protesting the war in Gaza. It was not just Columbia. So this is an issue that I, as borough president, have dealt with extensively and thought about deeply. I want to say that personally, I strongly support the right to protest. I believe this is a bedrock American value. I support the right to protest against the policies of any government, against the policies of New York City government, against the policies of the Manhattan Borough President's Office, against the policies of any country, including of Israel. No country's government is perfect. But when you yell at Jewish students on campus, quote, "Go back to Poland," unquote, as happened at Columbia, that is not legitimate protest. That is anti-Semitism. When students gather to chant, quote, "Hillel, go to hell, bring the war home," unquote, in front of a banner with a rifle on it, as happened this week at Hunter College on Wednesday, a few blocks from here, that's not legitimate protest, that's anti-Semitism. When you go onto a subway car and yell, quote, "Zionists, raise your hands, this is your stop to get off," unquote, as happened in June in Union Square, that's not legitimate protest, that's anti-Semitism. When you splatter the homes of Jewish board members of the Brooklyn Museum with paint and write vile slogans on their doors, as also happened in June, including here on the Upper East Side, that's not legitimate protest. That's anti-Semitism. And when you throw smoke bombs at the Nova Music Festival exhibit, an exhibit I had the privilege of spending time in, an exhibit explicitly devoted to the cause of peace and coexistence, that's not legitimate protest, that's anti-Semitism. And we need to fight back against this anti-Semitism on every front. We need to change our laws, like allowing for the defacing of a synagogue with anti-Semitic graffiti to be charged as a hate crime, a change which, despite our ongoing advocacy, we have not yet succeeded in bringing about. We've got to make it easier to report hate crimes. So many go unreported. Those statistics I cited earlier, as shocking as they are certainly an undercount. One way we can make it easier is to remove the requirement that victims must report their hate crime in the precinct in which they were victimized. Many people do not want to go back. We should allow people to report those crimes in any precinct, wherever they are in New York City. We have got to improve the teaching of Jewish history in our public schools, which absolutely must include educating young people about the difficult lessons of the Holocaust, but also the positive contributions the Jewish people have made throughout history, and there are so many. We need colleges, including CUNY, to include curricula about anti-Semitism in their mandatory anti-bias training for incoming students, something most colleges do not still today yet do. And as Rabbi Davidson has shown us, we must continue to do the hard but important work of building bridges beyond the Jewish community. I'm here to tell you that we have friends and allies in every ethnic and religious group in New York City. In the African American community, in the Latino community, in the Asian American community, in the LGBTQ community, and yes, absolutely in the diverse Muslim communities of this city. These may not be the voices that you see on social media, but I hear from them every day. I speak with them every day. And it is critical that we join with them in common cause. The Jewish community should be the first to speak up about the fact that there has also been an alarming rise in hate crimes against Asian American New Yorkers, against trans New Yorkers, and yes, against Muslim New Yorkers. We should be the first to denounce the unconscionable disparity in maternal mortality in New York City, where black mothers are 8 times more likely to die in childbirth than white mothers. We should be the first to speak up when xenophobic rhetoric is hurled against the migrants arriving here. Yes, managing the migrant crisis is an enormous economic and political challenge for this city. But I talk to these families all the time. And the first thing they ask me always is, how can I get a job? They want to pay taxes. They tell me this. They want to pay rent. They want to stand on their own 2 feet. This wave of arrivals will make our city stronger, just as every other wave has done throughout our history. And the Jewish community should be saying that. I know many of you are vocal on these issues. It's who you are. It's who Temple Emanu-El is. I know that we can come together as a city to beat back this rise in hate. I know that we as a Jewish community will get through this, because amidst the hell of the past 11 months, I have also seen signs of hope for us. The outpouring of Jewish activism during this time has been off the charts in every arena: political, social, organizing, activism, cultural. And there's more unity now, more common purpose across the Jewish spectrum, from liberal to traditional and everywhere in between. The massive community of Israelis here in New York has finally become civically engaged here, building deep alliances with American Jews, alliances that are not going away. For all these reasons, I am absolutely certain that we will get through this difficult time together in New York City and beyond. אני בטוח שנעבור את זה ביחד, נתקבל ביחד, ננצח ביחד. עם ישראל חי. שבת שלום.